Today I'm chatting to Nima, someone who I've got to know through Women in Tech. It's first of all lovely that community does put people together, and it's fantastic for me to be able to talk to you because you're someone who has a vast amount of experience in the area that I work in. Before I get into it, explaining any of that, how are you today?
I am good. I am
Yeah,
good, yes.
that's a lot of energy.
It's a good day, and I'm excited about what we're going to be talking about as well.
Positive energy is a good thing. Look, Nima, I was keen to talk to you because you're the founder of the Brilliant Communicator, right?
Hey, yes.
Communication is something that a lot of people struggle to do, especially in an increasingly hybrid world. Lots of people come to me, for example, and say, how do I get a brand out there? How do I kind of get traction on platforms like LinkedIn, where there is so much content and so much that people can be diverted by? So I
Mhm.
was really keen to kind of dip into that experience. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the Brilliant Communicator and what you're trying to do?
I believe that there is a direct line between how well you communicate and how well your life turns out. Because there are three things you communicate: what you need, what you want, what you do. Communication is core. I call it a core skill. It's something we're not taught at school. We just take it for granted. Like, oh, I can speak my mother tongue. If you are great at getting across what you need and want in a way that acknowledges the other person's perspective and is able to get your perspective across, there's a lot more chance that you'll get the yes that you're after, right? And so that's why I do this. It's called the Brilliant Communicator. It's applicable to your personal life, your professional life. And the reason I did this, shall I tell you why I did this?
Hmm.
Okay, so I've had decades on global TV stages, meaning moderating, chairing panels, and that sort
Yeah,
of
you,
thing.
you were a broadcast journalist with the BBC for a number of years.
Exactly. I did that, but in tandem, I also did chairing, hosting,
Hmm.
debating. The third thing I did was teach, train the C suite, for example. It all comes down to one thing, which is I have something I want to get across. You want to get buy in. That's why you want to communicate something. But the question is, whose buy in do you want? I bring this up because in the corporate world, I find that the the purpose is often lost. What do I mean? When I was younger, I was so naive because I used to think that conferences were all about moving the conversation forward, whereas actually, more often than not, it was about ego fest and not fit for purpose if the purpose is moving it forward because it was repetitive and you'd meet the next year and talk about the same stuff. So it wasn't about progress and moving forward, it was about, oh, we have a box to tick. I have engaged with my stakeholder. I'm interested in enabling people to move their conversations, their lives forward. I love training the C suite. I still do that, but I really love passing on the toolbox to people who don't get the opportunity to get the toolbox because they are not deemed leadership material.
Something that I wanted your help kind of dissecting, and something that I think will be really interesting for people listening, is your perspective on, and I'll give a couple of examples, on how you get your message across. Because there are lots of entrepreneurs and there are lots of intrapreneurs and people who are in business, and maybe it's driven by ego, but they're trying to get attention. They're trying to kind of find some space online. Um, I am one of them. And they don't have necessarily a marketing budget. They don't have a marketing background, and they are experimenting and they are playing and they are trying to see what happens. Two examples. Um, I've been lucky enough to interview David Breer, who is the CEO of 11FS. They have a podcast called FinTech Insiders. They were a challenger brand in the financial market space. And for them, podcasting was a way of breaking through and creating noise to compete with organizations who had much larger marketing budgets. Be interesting to see why you think that might work as a strategy for people and what things they can look out for. And equally, a podcast that I did very, very recently, it'll be coming out on the channel, someone called Molly Johnson Jones, who's the CEO of Flexer. And she has used LinkedIn to build up a profile where she speaks about flexible working. She got friends and family to like her early posts to try and get traction. But she, to your what do you need, want, do, spoke about what do you do. And that has then led to the need and the want, because she talks about flexible careers. She talks about why it's important. She talks about aspects of it. And now people come to her with leads, with requests, because she's built up a profile in that space. And again, an example of an entrepreneur, a startup business who didn't have the resources of, say, a big four consultancy. What would you pull out from those couple of examples, and what should people be thinking about when they're trying to build that profile?
Not being part of a big organization, I actually see that as a huge advantage. Many reasons. It can be restrictive if there are other people and legal layers get involved in the creation of the content. When you are your own person or you're a small, nimble team, you can make that call and you can decide, I want to talk about this. Because here's the thing, being samey and vanilla and conformist, what do you want to talk about? And why should the people bother listening to you? The question is always, why should I listen to you? Two, the tech these days is fantastic. You can be a whole broadcast studio on your own. It's so doable. So, what is the thing that needs to happen? What needs to happen is you doing it. I have a dear friend who's dying of cancer, and he's really keen on getting on video and sharing what he knows. Has he done it? No, because he's scared of it. Why do I bring him up? This is an extreme example of his time is limited, and this is something he really wants to do, but he can't get over his own internal barriers and boundaries. So, for everybody who wants to do this, you can do this. You've said that you've had people reach out to you, David. People reach out to me for the very same thing, which is, how can I do it? So, it's about you deciding and then getting out of your own way. That's a big thing. About the likes, let's look at purpose. You are putting something out. Why are you putting it out? Because you want to cement what you are brilliant at in people's minds. Okay, you want to be the go-to person for this thing. If that's the case, and you get people who aren't part of that ecosystem, you ask them for the favor and to like your stuff, I don't think that's the way to go. Because it's not a numbers game, it's about the right numbers. So it's the right people liking your stuff, the right conversations and ecosystem that's built on the back of that.
Sure. Okay. So I'll add that absolutely. So Molly, who I interviewed for that, agreed. It was very much, it needs to get in front of the right audience, but to get the right people to notice it, it needed a certain momentum first.
What is momentum, i.e. interest? That's what she needed. That's what we all need. We all need the interest of the right person, okay? So how do we do that? What you do is you want to own your brilliance and credibility. How can you do that? By sharing it. And it can be a comment on somebody else's post. It can be creating your own content. Things like podcasts or even the old-fashioned blog or anything like that that takes more effort, so there's more friction involved, is fantastic. Because there's more friction, less people will do it. So if you do it and you stick with it, then you build up that traction the longer you do it. But also things like ChatGPT. ChatGPT is my agent because somebody found me via LinkedIn and I said, I have no connection with you. How did you know I existed? This person said, well, I put into ChatGPT, who is somebody who does this? And your name came up. And then I narrowed the search and I narrowed the search and your name kept coming up. And so I found you on LinkedIn. And I'm saying this because LinkedIn is a window. It's a conduit as well. So the window is you're putting out your content. Content can be comments on other people's posts. And by the way, even if you put out your own content, it's actually really good to post on somebody else's post who's the right sort of person for you, because people get a sense of you and then they check you out. It completes the cycle. It gets picked up by search engines. This person equals. But you know what, David? It's about going right back to the core of this and thinking, okay, what am I the go-to person for? What is it that I want to put out? It's about really being specific. Does it mean you have to be boring and only talk about that one word over and over again? No. But it's about bringing that into the conversation every time you have something to say.
I have been told on this point of, making sure that, why should people pay attention to you? Why should people listen to you? That it's good to be known for 5 reasons. That 5 is the number that, here's the 5 reasons that people should listen to you as a person or an expert. What do you think about that? Because I sometimes struggle with the idea of why would people listen to me? Because it's a podcast that talks about all sorts of different stuff. So sometimes that can be quite difficult for people to boil down 5 things.
I'm sure if we thought about it together, we would come down to a nucleus of something key, and then there'd be things that come off of that. So I'll give you an example. I'm about everything to do with communicating, right? That's my core thing. So it doesn't matter whether it's on stage, on the page, on TV, and it's about how do I get across what I need, want, and do? How do I communicate this in a way that gets the interest of the other person? Why is this important? It's important because, especially when it comes to women, if you want to increase the chance of you having financial dignity later in life, the way you communicate what you need, want, and do is really key. Because if you could communicate what you need, you wouldn't hit that wall. STEM wouldn't be losing the number of women that it loses every year who don't necessarily come back. So then it becomes okay, I'm about communication. This is linked to having a good life. My equation is ability plus ambition plus sanity equals sustainable success. So if you want to think about it, those are my things. Are you able? If you're not, go and get the skills, get the track record. You need to get across what you need, the training that you need. And then you need to learn how to share what you're brilliant at, internal, external, with your team, with your boss. Ambition. What do you want? You need to be able to communicate what you want, what I want next. I want to lead that project. I want that training. I want the sabbatical. Sanity. You can get it, but can you keep doing it? That equals sustainable success, because sustainable success is about being solvent, staying sane, mental health. It's not just about having what we call a mental health issue. I think we all have mental health issues. It just depends on when it peaks and how and why. So being solvent, being sane, this all leads into what we call success, the definition of which will change as our phases of life change. So what I'm saying is the communication piece is at the center of these other things. So I talk about other things. It all comes back to, and that's why you've got to be able to communicate brilliantly.
So where I want to finish this is, I think anyone listening will buy into what you're saying, but they might still sit there and go, yeah, but how? And to take your point of your friend who has not shared because they're worried, not only are people possibly wrestling their own demons and worried that it might not be good enough or what they might be saying might not be interesting, but as you mentioned before, podcasting, blogs, it feels overwhelming sometimes. And yes, there is this ability now with phones that there's a studio, so why aren't you getting on with it? There's almost an element of pressure. How can someone practically take some first steps to communicating, and not necessarily being a brilliant communicator, because it might be their first steps, but at least starting that journey to trying to get their message out there?
But they're still being brilliant. Even if they feel that they are not a brilliant communicator, they're being brilliant because they are doing something about it.
Yep.
So meet yourself where you're at, work with what you've got, and do it. Let's break it down to the steps that enable you to do it. I don't like the word confident because it can be weaponized. That person isn't confident, so we're not going to give them that role. There are C's that are important. It's about feeling comfortable, feeling credible, and being consistent. Look at your life, your week. For example, it could be, okay, every Thursday at 3:30, I can carve out half an hour to share the most asked questions this week that I get from my team and clients and customers. If it's a global organization, you have an intranet. Sometimes people can share, but then they say, but I'm not comfortable enough putting myself out there on something like LinkedIn. Anybody can see me, so it's not your team. There are different levels of discomfort. What I'm saying is, if you want it, drill down and define the exact reason. It's not enough to say, I'm not comfortable, I don't feel ready, I don't feel I can. Drill down to the what is it that means. Be really specific. I can do it if it's on my own in my office. Great, then you pick your phone up and you do a voice note. You don't even need to have your face on there. And then you use one of the fantastic apps out there that let you create an audiogram. So it's you, your stamp is there, it's your thought, your opinion, and you're just starting to get comfortable. Being brave, it's doing it even though you're really a bit scared. Define why you're uncomfortable and then create a way that you can be comfortable. 1, 2, are you credible? Of course you're credible because you're brilliant at what you do. Otherwise you wouldn't want to share. It's about reinforcing that and not doing this idea of PhD level content. So many of the people I work with, what they do is they disable themselves because they want to put out next level, like a research paper, a white paper. Just stop. Let's meet ourselves where we're at. Did something happen in the meeting that you thought, that's a good point? Share it. Yesterday, a member in my community wrote something to the effect of, all communication is loaded. Everything comes with background and history. All communication has something else added on. I picked up my phone, I was in my kitchen, and I said, oh, somebody in my community just wrote this in her profile. What does this mean to you? So you're constantly reinforcing what you're doing, proving credibility by being what you're doing and sharing it, and getting over your own self, the fear, that restriction. And the last C is consistent. If you do it once and you don't do it again, that's never going to lead to anything. So it's about meet yourself where you're at. I can do it once a month, I can do it once a week, I can do it once a day. Where are you at? Don't be ambitious with that. Be really realistic. The three C's together equal confidence. You've got to be credible, you've got to be comfortable with what you're doing, you become comfortable by doing it, and you've got to be consistent. And the consistency is not just about showing up regularly, by the way, David. It is about consistent, about wanting to be known for that thing. And I'll give you an example. Annual construction industry event. Two women were invited to speak at it. They both turned the invitation down and nominated male colleagues. But that's a different conversation. The point is, they're not being consistent, meaning, I am the go-to person for this. I want to be known for this. Oh, there's a great opportunity for me to share my brilliance and to be known by the people in the audience and the people who are associated with this. I'm not going to do it. So that's when you've got to be consistent. As a journalist, for example, if I ask somebody who is an expert in something, that the thing happened, I need this expert opinion, the person says no. Now, the person says no because maybe they're not comfortable being on camera. Hello, this is news. It's got to be now or never. And it not only means you miss out on that thing, you miss out on the next thing too, because I am not going to call you. You're on the blacklist because I don't have the time to cajole. So there you go. The three C's, what are they? Credible,
Comfortable, credible,
comfortable, and consistent.
consistent.
And consistency is two consistencies, the time and place. Be consistent in saying yes if you do want to be known for something. Yeah.
Nima, I
Helps.
really appreciate you giving up some time and talking through this.
You're welcome.
It's tapping into a wealth of experience, and I'm sure it's helpful to people who are trying to work out how they tackle this. So thank you for your time, and
You're welcome.
I'm sure
It's a
we'll have you
pleasure.
back.
Thank you, David. Take care.